When this project took off, there were a lot of people within the Navy who were skeptical. We were hopeful, we were optimistic, and yet skeptical because it was a huge challenge. There were not many people who had done this kind of thing. Although India was a maritime nation, we had somehow got fixated on the idea that we were a continental country. So we read and heard about people like Francis Drake, Christopher Columbus, and so on. We never came across our own maritime personalities, maritime heroes, people like the Zamarins of Calicut, Admiral Kanoji Angre, and so on. We as young officers, we used to feel that there is a need to revive the maritime consciousness of India, especially the Indian youth. So when I became the Navy Chief in 2004, one of the first things I did was to get someone to create a statue of Admiral Kanoji Angre and install it outside my office. For whatever it was worth, I thought it would remind people that we were a maritime nation. Then a few months into my tenure, I got a letter from Admiral Manohar Awati. Now, Admiral Awati was a multifaceted personality. He was a sailor, a horse rider, and he had many interests. Why I read his letter with great attention was that he was the commanding officer of the training ship INS Tir when I was a young cadet many years ago. He said that it has been one of my dearest wishes that an Indian sailor should sail around the world. So he came down to Delhi, called on me in my office, came very formally, and he said, look, you and I have to push this through. So with tongue in my cheek, I said, yes, sir, provided you volunteer to be the first sailor to go around the world. And he had a good laugh. He was in his 70s, so we both had a good laugh. But I accepted his project in principle. Raksha Mantri, the defense minister at that time, was Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, a very intelligent and person quick on the uptake. So in a couple of days, I put the case on a file, and walked into his office and started talking to him. I thought it would be very difficult to convince a politician about a project of this nature. But within a few minutes of my briefing, he said, look, I think that's a wonderful idea. I was quite stunned to hear that. So I said, sir, this is going to cost a bit of money. So he said, how much? I said, at least 1 crore. He said, nonsense, crore is nothing. It will cost you at least twice or 3 times that much. Go back to your office and put up a proper case on a file. And lo and behold, within a few weeks, a case of this nature, which the bureaucracy would never in a million years have cleared, was cleared. And we thought of giving it a name, and the name came up as Sagar Parikrama was the name that we hit upon. Now the next problem was to find a sailor who would undertake a project of this nature. And then came up this young man called Dilip Donde, very unassuming person. He didn't have much sailing experience, but from his attitude and his resolve, it was quite clear to us that he's our man. Our choice was really inspired because what Dilip Donde went on to achieve was really nothing short of a miracle. The third issue was we had the money, we had the sailor in hand, we didn't have a boat. And one of Admiral Awati's conditions was that the boat should be built in India. That again was a huge challenge because boats of that kind which can circumnavigate the globe are really, nothing of that sort is built in India. After looking around virtually all over the world, we found a design. I think it was a Dutch design. We located a builder who was willing to take on this very challenging project, happened to be in Goa. He did a fine job. So eventually we had the funding, we had a volunteer to sail, and we had a boat. And that is how project Sagar Parikrama came into being and saw success at the end of it.